Welcome to the RCAP USA Roundup, a podcast where we have real conversations affecting both cattle producers and beef consumers. We're your hosts, Jaiden, Moreland, and
Karina Jones.
With that, let's get to today's episode. Welcome back to a new season of the RCAP USA Roundup. On our first episode back, we are so excited to sit down with Indiana producer and rural advocate Greg Gunthorp to discuss global corporate agriculture, local food systems, advocating for rural America, competitive markets, and more. This episode is sponsored by Ag Risk Advisors. Ag Risk Advisors provide risk management solutions for food and fiber producers. Their goal is to educate and advise their customers on all options available to them, including public programs offered through federal crop insurance, private programs offering deeper levels of coverage, and hedging programs protecting them against market volatility. Learn more at agriskadvisors.com. Thank you for your support of RCAP USA, and thank you for being a 2023 convention sponsor. Let's work together so that no rancher is left behind. Did you know agriculture had the highest suicide rate of all other occupations from 1992 to 2010? If you are a struggling rancher, farmer, or our family and friends, we encourage you to join our weekly support group style virtual meetings for those in agriculture to gather and converse in a safe space. Meetings are led by Coy Young and held every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on Zoom. To get meeting details for various suicide hotline phone numbers, other areas of support, and to learn more, visit norancherleftbehind.com. Okay, well, Greg, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. Let's start simple. Why don't you just introduce yourself, kind of just tell us about yourself, your family, and your operation.
Sure. I'm Greg Gunthorp. We have a family farm in Northeast Indiana, in LaGrange, Indiana. We raise pigs, turkeys, and sheep on pasture. We have a USDA inspected processing plant. And the short story of me is I grew up on a diversified crop and livestock farm. My dad and brother still farm that. Was about 600 acres when I was young. Raised farrow to finish pasture pig operation. Finished some cattle. Dad and grandpa finished 300 head of cattle until 1985. Some small square bales of hay, wheat, corn, alfalfa. Diversified crop and livestock farm. Traditional independent family farm. I went off to college. Knew I always wanted to raise pigs, and actually went off to England and Scotland the summer after my graduation as an exchange student with the FFA. Come back home to farm in the early 90s. About 4 years into that, Dad said the hog industry's finished for the independent family farm. It's going to sell the sows. I said, I want to raise pigs. I went to college to raise pigs, grew up knowing I wanted to raise pigs. I'm not done raising pigs. So my wife and I went off on our own. I'd bought a farm in 1990. We had 64 acres, was raising pigs. 4 years later, found out my dad was right. In 1998, my wife and I sold live pigs for less than what my grandpa sold them for in the Depression. We netted as low as 5 cents a pound for pigs. Price in the grocery store actually went up from a $2.59 retail average to a $2.61 a pound retail average. So the system was as rigged back then as, well, it's actually more rigged now, but that's beside the point. But I still said, I don't want to quit raising pigs. And I said, I stayed at 11 different family farms when I was in England and Scotland. 2 of them were making a living. Direct marketing, selling to restaurants, retailers, to individuals. At the time, and I wish Mom, she probably still has the letter somewhere, but I wrote home saying that was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. I can't imagine making a living actually getting your animals processed and direct marketing them. But 10 years later, I said, I think we can eke out a living if we'd make some connections with some chefs in the big city. And a little bit of luck and some fate. We connected with Charlie Trotter in Chicago. Wine Spectator magazine that same month rated him the best restaurant in the world for food and wine. And that was our first customer. And it started slow, but it gained some traction. Had we filled out the paperwork in 2011, Inc. We'd have been on the Inc. 5,000 list, somewhere in that 16 to 1,700 fastest growing independent companies in the country. So it's been an amazing, amazing journey. We built a USDA inspected processing plant on the farm. Our product is served at O'Hare Airport. It's served at the Wrigley Field at the clubhouse to the players. It's served at Disney. This whole farm to table movement has been a really, really, like I said, amazing journey, and it's been fun. But the story now is that, we built some viable niches as direct marketers, and virtually every one of these viable niches, Big Ag has co-opted, and wholesale is getting really, really difficult to the point that most days, I would say that wholesale for direct marketing is probably actually done for the small independent farmers and the small independent processors. Still think there's some huge opportunities out here, but I think that direct to consumer is probably the biggest opportunities. And I think except for, there'll still be some people that stick it out. There's still some independent hog farmers. I don't know if there's any independent egg producers or broiler producers, but, some people stick on a lot longer than they should. So there's some really tough, stubborn people out here in rural America, and there'll still be some small processors, and there'll still be some people wholesaling. But I think in general, we rode it we were at the right place at the right time, and it, like I said, it's been an amazing journey.
So let's talk about a few things that you just kind of said in your story. You got to really highlight your story this summer in front of the House Judiciary Committee hearing, a hearing that was titled, "Where's the Beef? Regulatory Barriers to Entry and Competition in Meat Processing." Can you talk to us about that experience and why you were called to testify at that committee hearing?
Sure. That's a great question. And that was a huge, huge honor. And let me go back just a little bit further. I've been doing advocacy work for more than more than 2 decades. I served on the USDA Small Farm Commission back when Clinton was president and Glickman was Secretary of Agriculture. So I've been kicking this can down the road for a long time. It's one of those things when an email pops up in your email box and it's coming from the counsel of the GOP's House Judiciary Committee, you kind of think, oh yeah, that's probably a scam. And then you realize, no, it actually wasn't when they call you. The GOP vetted me, said that they were going to give me an invitation to, and at the last minute, I got an email from them and they said that they were going a different direction. And then less than 5 minutes later, the Democrats send me an email and tell me that they want to offer me an invite to come and testify at the House Judiciary Committee. And I thought, oh, I know how this already goes. We've seen this before. But they actually sent me a formal invite. And so, loaded up and went to Washington, D.C. If you do advocacy work, I think that's probably one of the higher things on your list is, to either talk to the president or to get invited to a Senate or House committee hearing. And, the hearing was about regulatory reform and antitrust. And those are both huge issues that I love to talk about, and that I think as a country that we strongly need to address both of them. Was kind of disappointed that, and it was what I expected, I guess, but the committee was extremely divided on the, one side wanted regulatory reform, the other side wanted antitrust enforcement, and they really didn't want to discuss the other side's issue. And I'm firmly of the opinion that we need both of those. And that I think that the majority of people in rural America believe that we need both of those. The small producers and small processors that want to direct market, want to process their own animals, need a legitimate pathway to be able to legally get those animals to consumers. The same as all of us, whether we're direct marketers or whether we're commodity producers, need antitrust enforcement. The whole basis of our society is the idea that we have, not excessive power in the hands of few. And agriculture has went so far beyond where they're taking away opportunities for producers and choices for consumers because of excessive power in the hands of the packers and the retailers. And we already have the laws on the books, and they need to enforce them. And that was my basic message. I think that there's a Rumble video circulating, because I was actually very fortunate. I think I got about 25 minutes of the time of the hearing to talk, and got to present most of the issues that I wanted. I was a little bit naive and I should have known better. There's some congressmen that'll really cut you off really quick if you don't really get to the point. And I've got a few things that I love to add into conversations, but I'm normally pretty good about setting them up so that I get to say them. You don't get the time to set them up in a House Judiciary Committee. And I learned a lot. Maybe I'll get invited back again someday, but it was the experience of a lifetime. And I think the biggest thing that it's done is that there's been huge amount of people that have reached out. It's vastly improved and expanded my network from people, not even just all over the country, but all over the world, wanting to address these issues. And I think it's provided me some opportunities to talk to more congressmen and senators on both sides of the aisle, trying to get them together so that they'll work on both of these issues, not just keep coming up with excuses.
One of the things that you were able to touch on it in that House Judiciary Committee meeting, which I encourage everybody to go back and watch. It's on YouTube. It's Where's the Beef? Regulatory Barriers to Entry and Competition in Meat Processing. But one of the things that you touched on at that hearing was the fact that the commodity market is essential to the niche market. Why are farm to plate systems dependent on value discovery of the larger market?
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while, because I was naive when I first got into this and thought that we really got into niche production because the commodity market had screwed us so bad, and there really wasn't an opportunity for the independent hog farmer. But I've come full circle and realized that in order to sell our product, we have to have a viable commodity market. And there's several reasons for that. Price discovery in the protein sector has become extremely, extremely difficult. There's not really good price discovery. And, it started, obviously, and I think everyone knows this, it started in eggs, broilers, fat cattle, and then the hog industry. And price discovery in all of these sectors are complicated or non-existent at best. In pigs right now, within the last year, the pork cutout price has been as low as 82 cents a pound. That's less than 10% of the pork trade. That's a switch from pigs used to be priced off of the that's a switch from. I'm sorry, my phone was ringing. That's a switch from pork. Pigs used to be priced off a non-existent spot market where only 2% of the pigs were pricing the majority of the rest of the pigs. And in a functioning marketplace, you have many buyers and many sellers. But right now, we're competing against a few distributors that have access to some of that pork cutout. The same as in the beef trade. The guys direct marketing any wholesale product right now are being competing against guys that can get foreign product mixed with fat from the excess of the U.S. and added in what's the term, lean, fine textured beef, referred to as pink slime or whatever, with a product of USA label on it at $2 and something a pound when they're trying to direct market beef at $5. ground beef. We're facing the same thing in the pig industry, where we try to sell trim products at $3 to $4.99 a pound, depending on how much extra work and packaging we've put into it. And there's product out there in the marketplace at $1 and something a pound, and you can't compete with that product. So if there's not a viable commodity market, the direct marketers don't stand a chance, because you can have an extremely loyal customer, but when that customer is pressured by a dozen salespeople with product that is a tenth of your price or a third of your price, some of them are loyal, but some of them, they can only take so much pressure, and they're competing against the guy down the road that's buying that stuff for the same price, saying he's a farm to table restaurant, and they cave, and you can't really blame them, because the majority of farm table product now comes off the Cisco truck, and the little guy can't compete with the Cisco truck.
That's so true. So as you and your wife have moved into, and really are perfecting the whole farm to table local food system, I guess, talk to us about the challenges of redefining that local food system and the challenges you faced.
The challenges when you're starting up, and the House Judiciary Committee was attempting to address these. But the biggest challenge when you're starting up is figuring out how to fit into that USDA inspection system. It's really complicated for new entries to get into the USDA inspection system. It took us 14 months from the time I filled out a grant of inspection application with the Chicago district to even get USDA to come out and visit with us. Not to get our inspection, but to get them to even come out and visit with us. They've actually got a lot better about that. There's still some limited situations at times, and I actually help some friends and processors work through and navigate that system, helping one in the Philadelphia district right now that took about 6 months to get USDA to even come out and talk to him, and then just come up with the craziest ideas of what they actually needed, and he had no due process whatsoever to deal with that. But so that's the biggest challenge, is to fit into the USDA inspection system. But I like my friend Will Harris's analogy best about it, and I think I shared it at the House Judiciary Committee. That it's a huge hill to get up to be able to get USDA inspection, but it's only when you get on top of that hill that you realize that it's the mountain behind it, and that's market access piece. It is really, really difficult and almost virtually impossible for a small producer to get a USDA and processing plant, and then to figure out a means of how they can get their animals harvested, processed into some kind of package so that they can sell the whole carcass, and so that they can fit into the current distribution system with either food service or retailers. We don't fit into that system at all. We've sold as much as 1 million pounds of product a year, and we have a couple distributors for some locations that we personally can't deliver, but we've never had a distributor. We've had to self-distribute. By the time you get that whole quality, price point, product expectation, all of that, we don't fit in a distribution model, and most small processors and small producers don't fit into a distribution model. Distributors like to take 40 to 60% of the sales, and there's nobody that can hit a price point that it works for the producer, the distributor, and the end consumer in that model. It's virtually impossible to get shelf space at any of the retailers, and I'd argue that's because they're already selling the big guys product that implies that it's the same as ours. You can't put legitimate product beside somebody that's implying it, because our product's going to be way more expensive, and then consumers are going to start asking, hey, what's the deal here? Why is this guy way more expensive than the Tyson grass-fed beef? I mean, it's like, come on. I'm not to pick on any names or anything, but they're probably the largest player in Whole Foods grass-fed beef with their forage-fed feedlot beef. That's not what a consumer expects any more than, we couldn't get shelf space at Whole Foods because the overwhelming majority of their pigs under their global animal partnership, level 1 and level 2, is typical confinement pigs. And I actually don't have a problem with people, whatever choice they want to raise their animals. But I have a problem with labeling that is not truthful and labeling that's implying that it's something else. Because I think the big thing that producers forget about this, and I think the industry has done a really good job of getting us to fight amongst ourselves on these issues. But I think the biggest thing that we forget as producers is that this truth in labeling is harming both producers and consumers. And it's harming producers because when they take commodity product and the packers and the retailers are the ones that are able to capture a premium by implying that that's something else, they're not sharing any of that premium back with the producers. And so in the process, they're harming commodity producers and they're ruining the demand for niches. And so that's taking away all of our opportunities. My county is an excellent example on that in the dairy industry. We're the third largest Amish community in the country, and we have, I believe, about 154 dairies left in the county. 4 of them are conventional dairies, 150 of them are organic dairies. And they're mostly Amish. But those guys figured out they couldn't compete in conventional dairy. They said, hey, you give us a big enough premium, we'll figure out how not to use antibiotics. We'll figure out how not to use pesticides, and we'll sell you organic milk. Organic milk got as high as $40-some a hundredweight. It's back into the 20s now because there's 2,000 to 20,000 cow dairies put out west in areas that there's no way in the world that they can graze because their grass doesn't grow. So the certifiers give them a waiver or an exemption. They don't have to get 30% of their dry matter from grazing because you can't grow that much grass. That's completely disingenuous in the intent of the rule. And the organic dairies in our county, anytime that they have to buy feed, they close up because they can't afford their feed bill. The organic dairy should be the kind of dairies that are in our area. It costs them substantially more to produce milk than what a conventional dairy is. Everybody that buys organic milk should know that. We should not allow systems that circumvent truth and labeling. And, it just takes away opportunities. And the dairy industry has been completely destroyed. I'm on the east side of the Corn Belt. So, we were hog and dairy, I assume most of your members beef cows on the, west of the Corn Belt. But county next to me had 400 dairy farms when I was little. There are 4 of them left. We should have done something to ensure that we still had an independent traditional family farm. And I still don't think it's too late. We should at least allow some of the people that want to do something different to have truth in labeling so that if they want to build a viable niche, that they have some control from what I consider predatory practices in the marketplace. It's part of a antitrust enforcement. It's part of what is required for a fair and competitive market.
So let's talk about a labeling issue that is particularly sensitive to the industry you're in, and that being the swine industry. Proposition 12 in California, could accurate labeling and consumer choice have helped to avoid this legislation that ended up going through?
Absolutely could have played a big role. I think that that's one of the other issues that they pit farmers against each other and farmers against consumers. And if as a industry, if the processors and the retailers were more accurate in conveying stories and messaging, and that they were providing consumers actual choices, and they were paying farmers legitimate premiums to raise products that cost substantially more, I think we'd see a lot less regulations in this country, because in general, I think the overwhelming majority of people in the United States actually believe in the free market and believe that if people want something different, then they should be able to seek it out and they should have to pay a premium for it. That's not legitimately what's happening in the food industry right now. If you go to one of the big retailers, there's bunches of brands in there, but all of those brands are controlled by mostly the same four packers in the meat and protein sector, and mostly the same 10 multinational corporations on every single thing else in the grocery store. It might have a different name on the package, but consumers realize it's all coming from the same people. They don't believe for a second that all of Tyson's chicken is antibiotic free any more than they believe that picture on that Smithfield pork where it shows the green grass and the red barn up in the corner. They don't believe for a second that the Chinese corporation that owns the majority of the pigs in the United States has any of their pigs that ever see green grass or a red barn in their life. And so consumers are actually pissed off, and the activists have, we give them ammunition because, you can't tell them, well, if people wanted to buy this, all they had to do was pay a premium. And then they say, well, Greg's out here saying that he'd love to sell to California, but he can't get any damn shelf space in California. So, I mean, at some point, don't we have to look at the checkoff organizations, the packers, the retailers, and say, hey, you guys got to be honest. If you want people to do something different, pay them a legitimate premium. There's probably farmers out there that'll do it. And if you're paying them that premium and that farmer decides, hey, that's not worth it, we're going to go back to a viable commodity market. We don't have either of those in the ag industry.
How important is it to have multiple independent producers, spread across the country in a competitive market in rural America versus having employees of an industrialized system just raising livestock?
I think we're getting to the point that this is becoming a food security and a national security issue. We all realize that central planning, whether that's government or corporations, is not something that is efficient, not something that is flexible, and not something that is resilient. And we've also all have to identify that this whole system of agriculture as it's industrialized is economically gutted rural America. If you look at the metrics of rural America, we're worse on most of them than what the inner cities are. So this whole idea that we're going to feed people cheap and that we're going to have an abundant food supply has not worked for farmers, and it hasn't worked for consumers. And we've went far enough down this road. It's probably time to try another path. And I think the thing that resonates most with the politicians and resonates most with the consumers, and the consumers got to see behind the curtain at the beginning of the pandemic, this whole idea of changing our food supply away from the independent family farm to one that is owned by multinational corporations and just ran by employees is not resilient. And we didn't really test the food supply very much at the beginning of COVID. I mean, we're finally starting to see the true facts about COVID. And look, they lost 25% of their processing capacity. The 80 some percent of the beef are slaughtered in 25 or so plants in the United States. 90% of the hogs are slaughtered in 40 some plants in the United States. Almost all of the poultry is slaughtered in 200 plants in the United States. It only takes one or two of them to go down, and we have black swan events. That's not the kind of system. We're an affluent enough society that we could pick a different model. And I'm not saying we have to go back to slaughter plants the size on Gunthorp farms. I'm saying that there's something in between there. If that's 400 plants, I don't know what the number is, but I still think that we should have 7.5% of the capacity should be locker size plants or plants the size of our farm. And the rest of them should be smaller because it'd be more resilient. And we should have independent family farms. Independent family farm, especially one with 3 generations on the farm, is an extremely resilient model and is the ideal and is what we as a nation should strive for. And if we're going to put any of our taxpayer funded money into a system, it should be to support independent family farms that put multiple generations on the farm and provide for a vibrant rural America.
I think you just answered one of my other questions, and that being, if you could wave a magic wand and redesign the domestic food system, what would that look like? And you're saying it would be more independent family farms, more independent processors, all of the things, because do you think the American consumer realizes how fragile our industrialized food system is?
I think in a way they actually realize, but I think in a way that they don't want to realize. There's quite a few of us farmers, both commodity and direct marketers before COVID, and we got kind of labeled as we ought to have tinfoil caps on, and that especially the direct marketers, we got labeled as granola crunching hippie farmers. When I tell people, there's not more than 72 hours worth of food in the big cities. If this food supply shuts off, people legitimately aren't going to eat. And we got to start to see that. It didn't get as bad as it could have, but there's nothing stopping an event that could make it where that's a realistic concern. And so, yes, we should have significantly more buyers and more sellers. It's, I've got an economics degree from Purdue University. Don't claim to be an economist, but, I always tell people that I can remember my Aggie Con 101 or whatever the first class was. They go over all of the requirements of what is an actual market. And then we spend the next years at college forgetting that that first class, none of those criteria are actually met. We don't have many buyers and many sellers. We have extreme concentration. We have all kinds of breaking the rules of what's required for a function to a market to function. And then we just act like the market functions. And, I don't want to sound too much like my friend Mike Calicrate, but he's actually, I don't mind sounding like Mike, but he's 100% correct in that the marketplace is dysfunctional, and consumers are aware of it, but consumers don't want to stop and think about it, and they don't want to put the effort into forcing both the food supply and our politicians to take the right steps to actually ensure that we can have a vibrant rural America, a resilient food supply, and that we can have a place for the independent traditional family farm, which is the ideal.
So let's talk about the consumer being part of the solution. Global ag corporations have focused their time and energy on big ag media and ag state senators and congressmen. Is it possible to rally consumers to the independent ag producers' cause without creating a panic? And how do we do it?
I've thought a lot about this topic, and I question, do we have to worry about whether or not we create a panic? In the United States, sometimes the only way that we get people to even move the needle is to create a panic. I've spent 20 some years advocating for the independent family farmer, the small processor, and man, we didn't really move the needle much. We've won some battles, but in my opinion, we're losing the war. And the beginning of COVID, and since then, the conversations on a resilient agriculture are much, much simpler with both sides of the aisle. Now getting results out of both of them are still just as difficult. But, I think the consumers could play a huge, huge role in this. I think the consumers could provide some farmers with a lot of opportunities if they would search out and want to buy direct from farmers. I think circumventing the system whenever they've got a chance. I think most consumers quickly realize that the commodity food system has some holes, especially on the quality and freshness side. So I think they can actually, feed their family something that tastes better doing that. And at the same time, those dollars go directly to farmers instead of funding multinational corporations. I also think that consumers, and we're going to have to get consumers involved to get the numbers, because there just aren't enough of us, especially, there's 2 million farmers, I think they say. But when you start talking about the number of farmers that are actually independent, traditional family farms that are making a living from farming, man, it gets to be a really, really small number, So unless we can get some other groups to help us with this mission, I think we're going to struggle. And I see no problem whatsoever in getting them all fired up and thinking that they got to panic, because no matter what, and we see it every day now on people talking about, oh, we can do without these farmers, oh, we can do without those farmers, and I've always said, I think actually over the last 5-7 decades, I think actually our problem's been the opposite, that we've actually overproduced. But regardless, we still have to be able to produce food, and we still have to have a resilient food supply. And it's probably got to cost a little bit more, whether that's from taxpayer dollars or whether that's consumers paying a little bit more. But we have to put resiliency of our food supply a little bit higher than the bottom of the food supply. We cannot least cost, especially protein production, into the future and expect that there's always something on those store shelves. That just least costing protein and just in time for 100% of it is not a wise idea for feeding people. It's also not a wise idea if we have any morality on the fact that we're supposed to take care of our animals properly. When you put 1 million of them in a hole at the beginning of hogs at the beginning of the pandemic because processors are closed, that's not a system that anybody can be proud of. And I see some of them defending it now, the price. And you can't defend systems on price over that. We're better than that.
Those are some great conversations. Greg, thanks again for sharing those insights. Jaiden, are you ready to take us out and finish this up?
I think so. So I think, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So we always close out our podcast with one specific question, and that is, what is your favorite cut of beef and how do you like it prepared?
Okay. I think you skipped one question that you told me earlier you were going to ask as the first question. I'd actually thought about that and had a good answer.
Oh, you're right. I totally did. Okay, so back up. So we're introducing a new fun question this season. We're trying to bring some relief to these real conversations we're having. So, Greg, what would you bring if you could just take 3 items to a deserted island?
Okay. I thought about this for a long time, and I've actually got 2 answers. So bear with me on it. And my first answer is that I would take a satellite phone, a boat, and my carry-on luggage. And I think in 2023, I think that's appropriate answer, because if you're in the right class, interpretation of questions is completely different for one group than it is for another. Now, to answer it in the intent of your question, I would probably take some kind of knife, some kind of fire starter, and my sleeping bag.
I love the thought that was put into that. That was great. So now, for the last question, we always ask everybody on the podcast, what is your favorite cut of beef and how do you like it prepared?
Okay. And this one, if you'll bear with me, just to continue on the line, because I'm sure that some of my comments are a little bit controversial. So I'm going to continue this line. First of all, I'm going to say, and the pork and the beef producers will be offended by this comment, but that doesn't change its validity. My favorite choice for protein is a properly cooked duck breast. And a properly cooked duck breast is better than any steak or pork chop on the planet. And I have some friends that raise some really, really good steaks. We raise a really, really good pork chop. But now back to answering your question. I'm going to answer this one in two ways. And my favorite cut of beef is I like to take a really, really thick bone-in ribeye. So, 3+ inch thick ribeye. I like to lay it on my green egg when the fire is just about making the egg hopping. I mean, as searing of a fire as you can get. 10 minutes on the first side, 6 minutes on the second side. Shut the egg down with my blue dot thermometer in there. Take that thing to about 138, 140 degrees. Slice it at a little bit of an angle. Pinch of salt, pinch of pepper on the thing. The thing is amazing. But my second choice would be some cubed beef, something off the chuck or something off from the round, 5-pound package, half a pound of tallow in the thing, some salt, some black pepper, a little bit of crushed red pepper, 12 hours in the circulator. So sous vide, 175 to 185 degrees, depending on what kind of consistency you want when the stuff is done. So a crushed red pepper beef barbacoa. And I think that the important thing as producers, and especially as direct marketers, we have to really get people to consider consuming some of those products that aren't part of that 12% of the middle. It's really easy to sell that 12% of the middle. Some of those other things, much better dining experiences and much better comfort food, much simpler to prepare, much longer window for people to be able to consume it in. So I always like to push people into, and that stuff, it's amazing when you take one of those cuts that would be a little bit tough, if you threw it up on the grill for just a few minutes. But, you put that thing in the water at 175 degrees for 12 hours, and oh my gosh, it's just falling apart, and it's really, really good.
Thank you, Greg, for joining us today. We look forward to following you and working with you, and we appreciate all the work you do in the advocacy and local food system arena. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today, and be sure to follow along at RCAF USA on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube to stay updated on all things going on in the U.S. cattle and sheep industries. To become a member or to learn more about RCAF USA, visit r-cafusa.com. RCAF USA is set apart from all other national cattle associations because we rely solely on membership dues and donations to carry out our mission to ensure the continued profitability and independence of United States cattle and sheep producers. We exist only because of support from our members. We ask you to help support RCAF USA and become a member. Go to r-cafusa.com to sign up today.